Ooh, we can get the Pope married. That's lovely. Good for him. At this stage, to be honest, we've become omniscient. We are actually God himself looking over the world. Maybe we'll just destroy the Abbey. That'll please the Christians. I've got papal disapproval. That is excellent. Everything has gone very, very strange indeed. A good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Nerd the Human, and welcome to this special Games Guide edition of Medieval II Total War, where today we are going to look at the Papal States as a faction. Now, they're a very bizarre faction, obviously not supposed to be playable, and with a few simple tweaks, you can make them so. Now, this isn't really going to be a guide to that. I'll do a separate guide on that on another occasion. But today, what we're really trying to do is, well, kind of break the game. The Papal States have a very strange place in the mechanics of Medieval II. So what I want to do is play around with how we can make the faction accessible and see what chaos we can create. So, without further ado, let's head into the game files. To start us off on our rollicking little escapade today, then, we need to head inside this file here, Desca SM Factions. This is inside the data subfolder of Medieval II Total War. Once inside, we can head down to the Papal States, who of course are listed as Southern European and Catholic. We'll have a fiddle round with that later. Of course, I do have a video on changing culture and religion. We do have some odd effects of the Papal States, but for now what we want to focus on is this little bit down here, having a family tree. I'm going to change that around to yes, because this creates a few little interesting effects, and it's intriguing to see how the game reacts to changing such a core feature of the game. Here we are then on turn 1 with the Pope, and things look as normal as you might expect. We've got ourselves a city, a few armies, a diplomat, and a cardinal in the town here. And if we go on the tabs, things look pretty much as normal as you might expect. We can see all of this options here. We can't click this right now, we'll get into that a bit later. And if we click on the family tree, which is now an option, isn't normally, we can see the Pope here is head of the family. That all makes a lot of sense. Now, of course, we've added in the family tree, which does slightly confuse the College of Cardinals and the succession when our Pope dies. So to solve, ooh, we can get the Pope married. That's lovely, good for him. So, with all of that, that is marvellous. We're getting offered missions. Not sure who the nobles are who are ordering around the Pope. Oh, that is absolutely beautiful. The Pope's got married. It's a grand old day indeed. So yes, this will run pretty normally at this point. It doesn't really make a huge amount of difference. We can actually adopt one of the other candidates when they come up. So let's just adopt this chap as well. So we can now see, yeah, he's now our first son officially, although of course he hasn't got the factionaire symbol. So the main thing to do at this point is kind of flick through the turns and see what happens when he gets a little bit older, because upon succession things are going to go just a little bit bananas. Welcome to the future here, and we have ourselves Pope Gregory at the ripe old age of 61, and his son Compagnus, who dislikes rebels, so he's not really a friend of mine. Luckily, things won't necessarily go well for him in a minute. So, we did get ourselves a random adoption first. He actually died, but our son here is ready to take over. No problem. The game hasn't flagged him as factionaire, you might notice, and I don't really have the option to. When I end my turn here, he should now pass away. Yeah, we'll accept the random bit of diplomacy that's going on in the meantime. Unfortunately, the game is about to get very, very confused about what is happening. Of course, normally they'd vote in a new pope, but now he's technically my faction leader, and the game is expecting other things. Yep, there goes the pope, and there goes the victory conditions. And also, the pope is dead. Yeah, the game doesn't really know what's going on. Am I even this faction anymore? What is even happening? This isn't the part where I'm omnipotent, by the way, or omniscient, I should say. God knows what's even happening here. So the Pope is indeed dead. Our faction leader has died, but we know we have ourselves a new leader. But yeah, our faction has officially been defeated, and with that, my faction has been conquered. Everything has gone very, very strange indeed. So as the sad music plays and the buildings crumble, I'm not really used to seeing this scene. Interesting. I might watch this all to its very end, but it looks very sad. Yes, let's try and figure out another way of doing this, because sadly, if you go and give yourself a family tree as the Pope, it unfortunately will end with Pope Gregory's death. Back inside Desca SM factions then, and I guess we'll change the family tree back to no, since that eventually breaks the game. What we can do though is muck around with some of the other stuff, particularly religion. I'm going to make them pagan, and you might think, oh Thomas, pagans aren't in the game, but they are. It's just you normally don't notice them because the Aztecs are the only pagan faction on the game. Of course the rebels are heretic, and then there's obviously the main three of Catholicism, Orthodoxy and Islam. So this time we're going to be pagan just to see what happens, and yeah, this gets very strange indeed. Back outside Rome once more, and this time Pope Gregory, you can see here, doesn't have a family tree. But of course he is now a pagan. Now I didn't switch around all of the religion in the city itself, because normally that is something that you need to fiddle around a bit more with. Obviously that's something that I showed in a different video, but it's officially our religion, it's just no one is pagan in the town. I have to convert that over in time. We do actually have one agent to do that. It does say cardinal, but he will still convert to our official religion, which is of course paganism. Now we can see that in more detail on the Pope screen, where yes, we have the papal stand-ins with the Aztecs, which is interesting because we don't know that they exist. They haven't been discovered yet. All sorts of weird things are going on. I can still try and call a crusade. It's gonna fail, as I said. I don't have enough stand-in with myself, apparently. All sorts of self-esteem issues going on with this Pope, I assume. But nonetheless, we have an interesting little situation here, and I played this for a little bit. It does start to go very strange indeed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump again forward into the future, and I'll show you just how bananas this particular circumstance goes, because this one has a lot more legs. I'm not quite sure what happened in this particular run here, but everyone seems to be very friendly with each other. It's almost as if the Pope disappearing has made them friendlier. There are still crusades going on, by the way. The crusades still get called. This seems to be a separate crusade option to the ones that Christians follow. Don't know who's calling them. As far as I'm aware, there isn't actually a Pope for the Christians right now, but there we go. It's all very strange indeed. Rome has actually rebelled, and if I try and make Florence rebel, things are going to go even more strange. Now, of course, the Pope doesn't need a city to survive on this game. He often wanders around for years and years and years. In fact, we saw that just now on the Holy Roman Empire campaign, where we kicked the Pope out of Rome, and he was wandering around Latium forevermore. Now, we even got a town. That's perfectly fine, you might think. Pope Gregory is over here. He can get on with his life, but things are going to go very strange once he dies, because he hasn't got long left to live. And of course, who is going to become the next Pope? Well, our cardinal list is obviously for our particular religion. There's only one cardinal, and this is that guy that we started with over here. Now, you might notice he's currently on a boat. That's because I was wanting to experiment what happened if he died before and after the Pope here. So we're just going to see what happens when the Pope dies. And yeah, this guy might have a bit of an odd transformation. And here we are, the Pope is dead. Gregory has passed away. We did have one option, and I don't know who Pisanus is, but he's definitely not Frogdigus or whatever the last chap was. So there we go. But the game hasn't broken. The game isn't over. My agent has disappeared, so I don't quite know what happens here. My cardinal clearly has become the new Pope, but it's not the same man with the same name. Anyway, we've now got an empty seat, so presumably when this guy dies, all sorts of weird things are going to happen. But there's no point of waiting for him to die. He's got a few years yet. Let's just reload, get him killed on a boat first, and we'll let Pope Gregory die and see what happens then when there's literally no one to follow him. We're just going to smash our face into the Polish Navy here just to make sure we drown the Cardinal. With that, our only Cardinal and the only future Pope will go down. There we go. A few alliances in tatters as a result of that. Hopefully Pope Gregory will die again on the end turn. It's not a guarantee, but it could happen. I did hear a bit of a death sound. Yeah, the Pope is indeed dead. Okay, so with that, there hopefully is no new Pope. Indeed, there's no message about it, and yeah, no Pope at present. The papal seat remains vacant, which really begs the question, what even is my faction at this point? I mean, there's one chap here And that's it. So, is it this guy here? What is he keeping us alive? God only knows. At this point, we have one city. We have no pope. So things are going from strange to strange. And now we don't know anything about the Aztecs anymore because apparently we haven't kept tabs on them anymore. Very odd. Things are progressing nicely then. We are burning down Florence with rebellions to make sure that we have no city very soon indeed. Might just vacate it, to be honest. Probably be easier. In the meantime, though, we're going to get rid of our only general here to see what nonsense that brings on. These guys are just here to make sure when he routs the battle isn't over and he can get mopped up and killed. Let's hit him. Just died instantly there. That was quite spectacular. I hadn't even had a moment to turn down the speed, just straight into a spear. And with that, we have lost our last general. It doesn't say faction leader, of course, because he's just some bloke. But with that, yeah, the battle is officially, well, it's achieved what we needed it to. And with this, we now have no troops, no general, no pope. We have one diplomat who represents our people at this point. Let's see if they'll take ceasefire at this point. He won't declare peace with this one man. This poor one man just wants peace. Oh well. Well, this man's going to have a very sad, lonely last 10 years of his life. Let's flick through the turns and see what happens to him. It seems like our good friend has given up the ghost at long last. It took him so many turns to die that frankly I end up clicking through his goodbye message. So sadly for him, we won't remember much about him. But of course, that does mean we now have reached the stage where, well, we have literally nothing. No military, no settlements, no agents, no pope, no cardinals. Well, somewhere there are the Aztecs, and that is, I presume, the only reason why the faction is still technically floating around. Of course, if you place the Papal States normally, what would happen is that the Pope gets to vaguely exist until the Catholics are dead. And once the Catholics are dead, then he gets properly wiped out. And, you know, you've officially eradicated the papacy. I guess technically, while the Aztecs still exist, or sort of half exist, sort of exist, yeah, as long as they're still around, I guess we get to hover around in the background. At this stage, to be honest, we've become omniscient. We are actually God himself looking over the world, although strangely completely impotent, to be honest. I have no power whatsoever. I have no one on the ground to make any changes, which might be a strangely deep ending to this particular little experiment here. I do have buckets of money though, so it turns out God is rich. He can see everything we do, but he has no idea how to actually influence the world because his faction has basically been wiped out, which is a little bit sad. There we go. Right, let's head back in the files because there is one or two other little things we can still play with, I reckon. Back inside the files then, and we're now going to go and take the slave, the rebel religion of heretic. Now, of course, when I played as the rebels, we would get ourselves lots and lots of witches and all sorts of various heretics all the time. They're actually quite annoying because they kind of had their own mind and would wander around. So we're going to see what happens when we throw that in. Presumably, we're going to see our relationship with the rebels, which could be very interesting indeed. I wonder if we can get them excommunicated. Actually, that's interesting. Let's play around with this a little bit more. Let's put Hungary as heretic as well. See what difference it makes if we change around a couple factions. Let's change one of the Muslims as well. Not the Mongols. You're way too late in the game. Let's scroll a little bit further up. We'll find someone to mess around with. Here's Egypt. Okay, you can all be heretics. Now we've got Egypt, Hungary, the rebels, and the Pope. We're all heretic. Let's see what this does, because this could be interesting. Back onto turn one as the Pope, and everything looks as normal as it should, except on the Pope screen, no rebels are here at all. We have Egypt and Hungary, who is slightly more fond of, interestingly. Okay, and on the Cardinal College, just the Hungarian guy and my chap. None of the Egyptian imams count. Intriguing, although I guess not surprising in some ways. It's probably looking for priests to turn into cardinals rather than imams. Fair enough, I guess. It is interesting though when you start really playing around with the game mechanics like this to see quite how the game runs. It gives you a much better idea because of course a lot of the Pope stuff is very deeply ingrained to how the game was designed. So things like when you play as the Papal States, you can't choose the cardinals, you can't choose to excommunicate factions. That's all a little bit too deeply ingrained. It's all kind of hidden away in the programming, and it's not something available to the faction player at all. So interesting, the rebels don't appear on this. They don't really count as quite the same faction. I'm intrigued to investigate that bit a little bit more. Okay, well, let's see what else we can do with this, because this has me a little bit intrigued. We're beginning to have all sorts of problem in Rome with religious unrest. Hardly surprising. It has been converted to heresy very slowly over time. It's just the one agent, because of course I haven't fiddled around the buildings on this occasion to go and shove any of those in here. Of course you can do that. I'll put the link to the Change Around Religion and Culture guide in the description below. But I haven't bothered with that right now, just for this bit of playing around. But it is causing all sorts of issues in Rome. It's actually why on the last run through as the Pagan Pope that my cities were rebelling, because the unrest eventually caused lots of problems. Over time though, we'll probably find that a crusade gets called, and indeed we need to have a little bit of a ponder as to how we're going to fix that crusade problem, because right now I have no influence over that at all. You'd think as the Pope I can call a crusade, but no, it's going to be rejected time and time again. It's very sad indeed. And oh, my guy's died. That's unfortunately got killed in the riots, and that's an issue. Yeah, we're not going to convert this now, which is a bit unfortunate. Maybe we'll just destroy the abbey. That'll please the Christians. I've got papal disapproval. That is excellent. I'm so confused. Interesting. Rome is under attack from the Byzantines. They decide to go through with that. Well, I'm not too worried about it, to be honest. Yes, Inquisition. Now, I didn't actually tell him to do anything there, I don't think. A bit like the heretics. They sometimes just wander off. But we can go and burn people. Marvellous stuff. Of course, for actual characters, it will be based on their piety as a defence, as you possibly well know. But in the case of other characters, you can actually burn princesses, which is kind of amusing. Better than anyone you want, to be honest. Anyone who's standing around outside a town, you can clear them out of the map. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately, these guys pretty much always succeed, and after 3 kills, they'll just sort of die. I don't really know what happens. They kind of retire from being an inquisitor. I think the Pope tells them enough is possibly enough. I guess that's a mechanic to make sure that the inquisitors don't go around literally murdering everyone on the map, because if they didn't die randomly after 3 kills, they probably would go and kill everyone. Let's go and meet the princesses. That could be fun. Yeah, 46% chance on her, 70% chance on her. Yeah, you can see their charm is their defense stat on this occasion. Let's go murder all of the princesses of Europe whilst we see if this crusade is actually going to happen. Probably won't get a chance to now, because at this stage we're just going to die. Our dear Princess Ingrid has gone down, and with that this chap has he killed a couple now? Yeah, looks like he's still got a couple more murders in him. It's nice. Taken down the princess, somehow survived the Byzantine assault on their capital. So let's just go back and try that again. Let's go and take on the Milanese princess this time. She was very, very weak indeed. And you'll find, yes, he's gone down to 0, which means he'll be dead on the end turn. So I suspect he'll magically disappear into nothingness. Disaster struck Aleppo. And, crusade has been called. Indeed, I thought that took a long time. Might be because Cairo's there. Yeah, so the Inquisitor's gone, and a crusade has been called. Maybe the game was desperate to call it on Cairo, and it just had to wait for the jihad to finish. Interesting. So yes, some pope somewhere in Christendom is calling a jihad. But there we are. Right, let's wait for Pope Gregory to die on this occasion and see what that does to our relationship with Hungary, because that could go very interesting places potentially. Another random attack on Rome, because why ever not? Who knows what's going on. Now, ooh, a new Pope. That's interesting. I had no information about this, but Pope Gregory has passed away. And with that, we have ourselves the Hungarian lad. Interesting news indeed. 13 empty seats. And I don't think we're going to have ourselves a new... Yeah, that's made a big difference. to all of this. Heresy, immunity, NC. I'm not sure that's supposed to look like that. Oh dear, and it's too soon since the last crusade, which, yes, was the Christian crusade. We seem to be sharing this button with the Christians, which is particularly unusual. Yes, another weird side effect, by the way, of being heretic on this occasion is that, of course, the inquisitors are generated through heresy. So the more heresy there is, the more inquisitors start to pop up, which means we're basically spreading a spam of these guys across the map. It also does the same for creating more and more of the witches and the heretics themselves. So it's just become a massive snowball effect. We can just go around and do all that really annoying stuff where you go and murder everyone with these guys, although they're doing an impressive job of failing to make my point at this particular moment in time. Well done, chaps. You're all fired. There we go. He got the memo, didn't he? He got the idea completely. Yeah, so we now have ourselves Hungarian Pope. Presumably, yeah, we're back to pretty much where we were with the previous little experiment with the pagans. Okay, I think we've seen enough of this one as well. It's all very, very strange indeed. So last thing last, let's get to the crusade button. We need to fix this up because we can't seem to convince ourselves to call a crusade. We're just a bit indecisive about all of that stuff. Although, should point out, Byzantine diplomat right here. A lot of the time in end turns, diplomats will very, very slowly walk up to you, gesture, do a little curtsy, have a little spin around. It's been about 5 minutes before they talk to you. So a good idea, a good way of using these chaps is to go and burn them to the ground. There we go. At least that's one less diplomat to waste my time on the end turn. Okay, let's go and solve the crusade button. File we need is this one here, campaign_script. This is hidden well within the files inside imperial_campaign. You can see here the thread of folders you need to go through, starting from, well, the very prominent folder of data, of course. And this is the same folder where you find desk_strat, which you do need this to play as the Papal States, of course. But we'll focus on this for the time being. Campaign_script has exactly what we need. This is a file we have actually looked at a couple times before when we had the Mongol and Timurid guides, but this time we don't really need to change anything. We're just going to add a tiny bit of text in. So we're going to insert our data here right at the end between these little sections here. So I'm actually going to highlight this because I've already got it copied and pasted in. Because it's just a tiny bit fiddly, I'll paste this in my comment on the video. I'll put it in the description. Either way. So we've now got ourselves the same end monitor, but underneath it we have the Papal States. We need to basically ensure that the faction stand-in with the Papal States is at 1.0. Essentially, we are going to make sure that the Pope likes us. And from that, we can make sure that he's going to accept our little request for a crusade. Now, I've seen a few different suggestions of how you can fix this. For me, this is the only one that's ever worked. So if there are a few people that are saying that they're still having problems in the comments, I might well post you some of the other suggestions that I've found. But obviously, since they haven't worked for me, I don't feel like it's sensible to suggest them. Perhaps if you still have problems, you can verify for me if it works on different versions of the game. For me, this is the only way I found to make this work. I'm going to save this up and then reload the game. Time then for one final dance with Pope Gregory, and we can at last request a crusade. Off to Antioch we go, and there we are. The Pope has called a crusade, and it has been successful. So there we are. I think that's enough ruining the game for one day. Yeah, it's really quite interesting when you start mucking around with the mechanics of the game. The Papal States have an intriguing effect when you start fiddling around with it, but I reckon we can definitely make a good campaign out of all of this. It's certainly very strange indeed. Maybe we'll have to play around with the religions in future as well. But of course, I have just started myself a series as the Papal States. Do join me for that. We'll explore more of the nonsense involved, I am sure. But for now, I guess it's probably time to leave you. I'm Thomas, this is Tenacious Human, and this has been a little, well, we became God for a short time. We became omniscient. I say we became omniscient, actually. No, cancel the outro. Let me just take you back a minute to when I was omniscient. And Yeah, I'm just going to slightly break that, I'm sorry. Here we are then, back on our slightly blind campaign where we kind of lost everything. And you'll notice I'm no longer omniscient. I can see a tiny bit. I think this is a jihad has been called in Constantinople. Yeah, of course, at the time when I was saying I was omniscient, I'd taken off the fog of war just to make the screen a bit nice to look at whilst we're on this little video. Yeah, I actually can't see anything at all. Turns out I may not pass to Nirvana. I may have just basically be stuck in purgatory forevermore. So on that bombshell, I think we will leave it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Thomas, this is Nerds to Hearing, and this has been Breaking Medieval II and becoming God, I suppose. Thank you very much, and bye-bye. Flaming horses! It's a flaming horse! No one would stand in the way of the Reich! No! My archers. Sorry, look at this guy. I don't want to die. But of course you shall, my friend. Oh, yes.